right, welcome everybody. A couple of people I'm sure will be dropping in as we go along. I know Laura's gonna get here a little bit late, and other people have emailed and said, it's the last day of school, or it's my first day of vacation, or whatever. So it's that time of year. What we're gonna do today is actually, Amanda and Sari are gonna talk a little bit about where we might work together with their project in Future Ready. As you know, they've been in on, is this your third month coming to our calls or just second?
Two.
Second, yeah. Second, yeah. And then we're gonna have open it up for our typical discussion. And then at the end, I wanna make sure to mention what's gonna happen in the next call and the one after that, but we won't do that yet. That's just like to make sure everybody stays till the very end. So Amanda and Sari, I'm gonna have you go and talk about what we've been talking about and what you're thinking.
Great. So I think Sari's gonna lead us off and I'll jump in if there's anything to add.
Sounds good. All right, so hi everyone. We're super excited to be working with you guys. So just to give a brief description of what the Capturing Connected Learning in Libraries project is. We've been working with libraries for the last couple of years to design and implement evaluation tools that measure connected learning in youth programs and spaces. And from that, we've been creating resources and doing professional development to help librarians adapt those tools in their libraries. And I'll post a link to some of their resources in the chat in a moment. So our primary goal in partnering with Future Ready is to help you with your evaluation needs when it comes to your Future Ready projects. This might be finding ways to help you leverage familiar tools that you may already be using, like talkback boards, or possibly developing some new tools depending on what your needs are. So as a first step, we'd love to do a few focus groups with maybe 3 or 4 of you at a time. The focus groups would be for us to get a better understanding of what's most important to you, what your work demands are like, how your Future Ready projects are shaping up and what those are looking like. If you're currently doing evaluation or you have in the past, basically we just want to get a better understanding of your needs so that we can make sure that we're supporting you in ways that are genuinely helpful. So we'll be following up with you with information on how to sign up to participate in the focus groups, but we also wanted to check in with you and see in terms of scheduling, if there are any times that work better for people or months that you know are just going to be crazy that you know you definitely wouldn't have time to participate. Any feedback like that on scheduling would be super helpful. And also at this stage, if you have any questions about the project, the partnership, the focus group, that type of thing, I'm happy to answer any of those as well as Amanda.
What do you think? What's questions, anybody? And I just also want to mention Todd and Allison, since you, even though your previous cohort, I think you can also participate if you, well, Allison's an empty chair, so she's not hearing me say this, but Todd, you can definitely participate in this as well from your cohort experience and even coaching experience. So questions?
Is there any way that we can do like the sign up thing on like a Google poll or like a doodle or something like that? That way some of us can go ahead and check schedules and everything else.
Yeah, absolutely. If that's a good way to do it, we can definitely do that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Are there good or bad times for people or anything like that?
Not for me. I'm embarrassingly wide open.
Okay, you heard it from Diane.
Tuesdays and Thursdays are typically super busy here, but the other days and like this time right now is perfect because I generally have meetings at this time, so I never schedule anything.
And just also keeping in mind that everybody's across the country, so I always get messed up with time zones. So, so Bailey's in Oklahoma, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bailey's in Oklahoma. Yeah. Who else? Beth, is that you?
It is.
Hi, Beth. I'm going to change your name, so oops, so we know who you are. Anything else? And everybody okay with this? I think ultimately it would be really great to have your input and then these tools for people to use. We're good?
Well, I guess I missed a step. Is this a program of YALSA, or is this an outside, the Capturing Connected Learning?
So I'll start and then Sari and Amanda. So the Capturing Connected Learning in Libraries is actually another IMLS funded project. Funded for the same 3 years. Is this your last year, I think?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So Amanda and Mimi Ito and I were talking a couple of months ago and realized that there was a lot of synergy between this project, Future Ready, and the Connected Learning in Libraries, because it's all about connected learning in libraries, but how to figure out whether or not you've been successful in that outcome. Sari and Amanda, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would just say that, so we are in our kind of last year of this IMLS funded grant, and we have been partnering with LA Public Library, Chicago Public Library, Multnomah County Library, and Anythink in Denver. And we felt like we were kind of missing some of the voices of smaller and more rural libraries. And so we're really hoping to kind of, both serve our needs in terms of hearing from more diverse voices and also help you guys as well with evaluating your projects.
Thanks for asking that, Diane.
Yeah, that's helpful.
And I don't think either of you, Amanda or Sari, were here, but we were talking about ALA, and I was asking if anybody was going, and Karen and Todd were saying, they don't talk to small libraries. That's not, I'm paraphrasing for you too, but it's just such a big conference with so many library systems that voices of smaller libraries and rural libraries often get lost. So, yeah. Anything else? Sorry, Amanda.
I just have one question about the evaluation thing. Going through the project, one of the things that, as a smaller library, that I really appreciated was Linda was very specific that this is kind of a big experiment, the whole project of what we're doing. So, and I think that maybe getting this group the evaluation concept before they actually implement their project will be really interesting to see, because to be honest, I did mine and then the evaluation kind of came after that. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Awesome. And Kate, that's awesome that you're going, because Amanda and Sari might want to talk to you right there, right? Yeah.
Well, instead of me trying to figure out how to fit in a meeting with them around summer reading. So that would be great.
And I have one other person who told me they were going to be there, so I'll email everybody and get you all connected so you can try and set something up for annual.
That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so I'm gonna move us on, and I've already asked Bailey if I could put her on the spot because she and I talked earlier today about her project, and I think it would be interesting for Bailey to talk about what she's working on. And then also she has some questions for people.
Yes. Let me get out my notes. Okay, so I haven't uploaded my planning template yet because I've been in the process of working with Linda on it. And so what I'm working with, or what I'm planning on doing, is sort of a career expo, but like I shouldn't say hate, it's a strong word. I do not like that terminology. What I'm wanting to do, or what we're wanting to do with my partner and I, is to bring a whole bunch of organizations, businesses, and our community together. And kind of like what really spurred this was, I don't know if this was last month when we had the lady talk about the touch and teach. Was that last month?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
I feel like that was like 7 months ago. That's how much has happened in 1 month's time span. This what kind of spurred this. And so we were talking about bringing in people and partnering with the schools and either having like the middle school age kids bust in. And but what I want to make apparent to people in the community that we're reaching out to organize this is not something to bring papers to hand out to kids for them to stuff in bags and then go home and throw it away. Like, I want them to leave from this event and be like, Mom, I tried a tattoo gun and I think that's what I want to gear my art like towards. Like, I want to be a tattoo artist, or, you know, I want them to have like some hands-on experience to help them like click, wow, I'm really passionate about art. I could potentially do this. So that's like what we're working on, and this will be something that will happen in September. And I'm partnering with the community college here. Well, it's a community college here in Altus. And so questions are, what in the world do I name this? Linda and I have like talked through several different things, because like the words like explore and future and connect and passion and love and interest, all these things come to my mind. Career for a day, I like that. I don't want I don't want this name and then kids to be like, oh, you know, because we're talking about middle schoolers, obviously. They're not going to be like so excited to go collect papers from people I'm not going to remember tomorrow. Meet the Makers, I like that one too. We had talked about like it just being like, maybe did you know, like and then some kind of tagline like about the careers or passions that are in our community, because that was, and the reason why I'm doing this is that was one of the top like 80% of the surveys that I got back, not knowing what's available in our community, not knowing what types of jobs and stuff are available for kids to go into or to make their own path, and that they could do that here. If that is life is hard. Oh, I like that one too. So that's the update.
I am doing almost the same type of project. And I'm having huge issues with naming it as well. Mine, I keep coming back to like the road, like their highway or their path. And every time I come up with something, I have 3 teenagers and they promptly reject it as being stupid.
That's great that you have teenagers though to give you feedback.
They're like, Mom, no. Because they understand what I want to do. And
Right.
We want to do the same thing, except instead of specific careers, we are asking the people that come in to, in some way, highlight a soft skill. So that made it so that they're not coming in and standing in front of them and saying, so you have to get a master's degree, and then this happens, and that, like, they don't care. So, like, something that they use in their daily work life that requires some soft skill that they're going to highlight. So what the career is kind of secondary, And I found that actually people were, the businesses were very interested in helping fix what they see as some of the issues that they have with candidates. But I definitely need a name.
Beth, you
like
can't,
your road of life.
yeah, you can see the chat, right, Beth?
I cannot.
Oh, you cannot. Okay.
I am in my car driving home from work.
You always make me so nervous when you do that. We have some interesting ones. Karen has the crossroads of life and love. I love that.
Okay.
Try on your future, find your road. I'll post the chat so you'll be able to see them.
Oh, yay. Oh,
Yeah.
good. Such smart people. Well, Bailey, if you want my names, you can have them.
Okay. We could just name it the same. I mean, these are, I'm loving all of this. It's really, I just was stumped. I was coming up with like 2 or 3 and I didn't like any of them.
Yeah, I was like, cheerleader for your life. And my kids were like, absolutely not. Okay.
Yeah. These are great suggestions. This definitely gets me started. What? I mean, would it be too like much to come up with a couple of names and then like put it out on a community vote, or like have your teen group vote? Like, hey, we're coming up with this project program. We want to know from you guys what you would like to name it. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I think that's a good idea, Bailey. I would list them out and I would give them a choice to write other.
Okay.
But I would also say that today we are going to pick a name for our project so that they realize that there's a deadline, so that they don't just, it's dumb, we're not going to do it. So there's a deadline. We're going to pick a name today. Here are your choices. And there's one for other. We'll turn all of them in and we'll list them all out. And the one with the most votes wins. Done.
Love it.
Oh, that's great.
That way they just, yeah, well, then there's no hemming and hawing and coming back to it. And then too, the voters have, they own it. It's now theirs. They can take that project and there's something solid there. You've named it, it's yours.
Karen, you're doing that? You're doing that? Did you just say?
No, I just said if you name it, then it's yours.
Got it.
Like a kitten.
Yeah.
Oh, is that how that works? And then you have to feed it and clean up the kitty litter and all of that? I never knew that.
You feed it and you pet it and you watch it grow.
That's awesome. Cool. Other thoughts for Bailey name? Bailey, I have a question for you, but first, other thoughts for Bailey naming?
And I'm sorry, I haven't replied back to everybody's suggestion, but just know that I collectively am very thankful for all of the suggestions, and I will have to go back through them when we get done.
Cool. So Bailey, can you also talk about the idea of the questions that, remember when we talked about the questions youth might ask or post, and then having a
yes.
Q&A?
Okay, so one of the like evaluation tools, because I still have not successfully done this, but I love the talkback boards. And I know Allison's used that a lot in her programs, and I just feel like, knowing the interaction I've had thus far with teens and kids, that will be the most successful way to get an evaluation done. So having like a talkback board of like having kids, like the question being, you know, what do you want to know about any of these careers or just any career in general? You know, just like letting them be able to post these questions. And then in the middle of this, haven't exactly figured this out logistically, but at some time during the event, having like a refreshment / snack time, and that be a time for the kids to like chill, and the people who are there, the businesses and everybody, grabbing a sticky note and like answering that question for them. If they can answer it, but I just thought that would be really neat because, you know, it's just neat to hear the questions kids already come up with. Like, you know, for a tattoo artist or a funeral home, somebody works at a funeral home or, you know, something. And then having that interaction to where it's not a lecture. They're like, hey, my question has been answered. And here's somebody who has experience in that is answering it. And it might, I would hope that it would empower others, you know, to have that confidence to ask questions. So is that that's what you're talking about, right, Linda?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Allison, it reminded me of the questions you got. Do you want to mention that? Because I thought those were really awesome.
Yeah, so when we did our kind of medical professional panel, we had a funeral director and embalmer. And one of the questions that was specifically asked of her was, does your job make you sad?
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a really interesting, and she answered it really well. And she said, well, yeah, it does sometimes. And I think that she says that's part of the job, is being able to relate to these families that are going through a very difficult time. And, you know, they don't want somebody that's happy and positive and, you know, not feeling some of the same emotions that they are feeling. So, and we did that kind of like the fishbowl thing where we just had them write down some questions and we threw them in a baggie and just started pulling questions. And we had more questions than we had time for. I mean, at first we planted questions simply because we were nervous that they wouldn't ask. But once they started going, they were throwing in questions left and right. I think they also asked her about mummification. So
I think, oh, go ahead.
I was just say that's really cool.
Art's Life actually fits. It's the art of funeral home. I mean, seriously, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would like to say that I know
embalming is art.
It is an art,
right?
I would say so.
Yeah.
Bailey, you kind of mentioned this a little bit, but you said, you know, you don't want it to be where the kids kind of just walk away with a piece of paper and go home. And this is something that I just struggled with because I did sort of a similar thing where it was kind of like a, you know, a fair thing. But how do you get the kids to know stuff, to ask questions for things that they don't even know about, as far as prompting that? The thing I noticed when I did mine, because I had questions for the students to ask, was that even with that there were some students who still, it was too much for them to even talk to an adult that wasn't a teacher or parent, because it's, you know, it's a little bit vulnerable doing. So, I mean, that's just something I've been thinking about recently, because it's a vulnerable thing for a young person to talk to an adult sometimes without stranger danger, you know, all of that. So I don't know if you've given that some thought or if anybody else has.
I really haven't, and so I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I mean, I wouldn't have really thought about that, and I think that's an important part to think about. So if you've come up with anything or any suggestions, let me know, but I'll definitely be thinking about that and trying to think through that, how we could facilitate that to where it's more of a you know, not as vulnerable, because that would be pretty vulnerable for a student to come up with these questions to an adult.
God.
Instead of doing it outside of the school and busing the kids there, have you thought about asking the teachers, especially like the business teacher or the home and careers teacher, the technology teacher, people like that, if you could bring those people into the school?
I haven't. That would
just
be
because, like, yeah, I'm running mine. All of junior high has to take. We called it home and careers. Now they call it, but they have to take it. And so my main partner is that teacher. And so we kind of revamped her curriculum a little bit so that we could add this in for the junior high. But then there's teachers there, there's people familiar pretty familiar with. It just like that might work. You
just broke up at the end. Can you say that again, Beth? The last part?
I just said that might work the best.
Yeah, that's something I'll have to think through. I'm in a little bit bigger community than what I was in Tennessee, so there are like two middle school areas, and then we have like some really small communities right outside that our library also services. So I wanted to connect with them, and so it might be more feasible to go to their schools instead of trying to ask them to come to Altus. So that is a good idea.
And they might even be amenable to some of the smaller schools coming into them for a day. So you do it twice at the two middle schools and then just bring in one or two of the smaller schools to that middle school for the day.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's definitely something to think about. This is why I love this so much, because there's so many things I haven't even, given thought to when you're thinking through this.
Allison, how did you facilitate the questions?
So we basically said, we have this panel, and we had everyone introduce themselves with what their job was. And then I said, if you have any questions, write them down on a sticky and put it in the bag that I was carrying. And at first, I would say there was probably about 4 or 5. And throughout the process, we started with one question. And then when the panel started answering the different questions, they started writing more and more. I mean, just throughout, because I think that they saw that they could ask anything that they wanted. Because we had basically about the emotional parts of a job, but we also had questions that were just, what is your salary? And that's a hard question to ask face to face of somebody, or what does your salary range look like? They also asked about, medical school and how much debt are you in? So, I mean, I think those are sometimes really serious questions that people don't want to ask face to face, but they need to know the answers to. They also asked questions like, how do you balance family life and work life? And these are questions they came up with. We did not prompt them with anything like that. They, thought and then they asked, what are your actual hours? How many hours do you work per week? Interested in, as far as the medical field goes, are you really working 40 hours a week? Sorry, I just printed something. So if it's like,
This is amazing. I mean, it's great to have these questions.
I like the snowball activity idea, and that could be really fun if you have a big group, because they would get all excited throwing it, so you would just have them write down their question, do the snowball activity, and then have the adults or facilitators grab the snowball and answer the question?
Yeah.
Or
one of the things I really like about the snowball with middle schoolers is that you don't have to worry about reading your own stupid question if you think it's stupid. Not that it is stupid, right? But if you as a middle schooler are uncomfortable asking your question or whatever, you have somebody else's and no one knows who it is, right?
That is cool. Okay.
Right? So I like that a lot. And it wouldn't even have to be, it would be great if you could do it in a big room. That would be crazy. But even if there's a way to do something like that, so if, like Todd is saying, there's discomfort in that, the youth can actually say, hey, it doesn't matter. Nobody's going to know it was me. And
snowball fight.
Post-its work. What, Allison?
Snowball fight.
Yeah.
If you have the space, give them 10, just say for the next 10 seconds, we're just going to toss them back and forth. I don't know. When I had a big space, I let them do that, and they kind of got into the whole throwing them at each other, and it's just paper. I mean, nobody was getting out of hand.
Yeah.
But sometimes that kind of loosens things up again, a little bit. Give them 10 seconds.
I also think having all of those on paper would be really interesting to see what all those questions are that they have.
Well, and for Allison, for students to have sort of that random thing, because in a job interview, you're handed a random question and you have to answer it. So planting that experience too is really very beneficial. I love snowball fights. So.
I use them as much as I can with adults all the time. So, Kate, can you talk a little bit, just because you typed that in, about how you've been using talkback boards with the youth you work with?
Sure. Just in lots of different ways. Like, I ran the Crazy Eights math club program this year, this past semester. So I actually ended up using them with like younger kids. So what I did, it wasn't a requirement of the program, but it was sort of an opportunity to use the tool and see how it went, and you know, gave me some interesting information to be able to, you know, talk to my board or my like other staff about what we were doing, or people or whatnot, around whether or not, like, Crazy Eights alleges that they changed kids' attitudes around math. So I was like, well, let's see. So at the very first session in the very beginning of the semester, I had actually 2 boards. I had what do you love about math and what do you hate about math. And so and for the little kids, like, I let them just shout out answers, and I wrote them down on sticky notes and like added them to the different boards. And then I collected up those sticky notes and I kept them. And then at the end of the semester, so we did we did session 1 and session 2. So we did like 16 weeks of math club. And at the end, then I just asked the same questions again. What do you love about math? What do you hate about math? And I just looked at the differences between them. You know, I did that kind of grouping thing that like Mega did, you know, look for the themes and whatnot, and just pulled out the themes, and I saw, like, it was really interesting to see a shift, because I had one group that was kindergarten through 2nd grade and one group that was 3rd through 5th grade. And so just there was actually that shift. And so it was like I had something there that could like demonstrate that happened, you know, that they went from I hate math is boring, I don't use math, like, to like math is fun, I like math. And then like on the I hate math, it was like I hate my math teacher. I did not pass on to the school system. Like, but it was like, you know, like it was like I hate math class. Like, it was interesting how there was nuance suddenly to the things they didn't like. Instead of not liking math, it was math class they didn't like, math teacher, the teacher who teaches them math, they didn't really like. So so that was really interesting, because then I had this bigger list on things I love about math. I love addition, I love geometry. Like, they didn't know the word geometry until, you know, but so that was just really interesting to see that. And so so I like doing that, and I've done it with my storytime parents even, like, just, and I usually like ask sort of open-ended questions and then get post-it note comments, and then do that like thematic grouping thing is what I end up doing most of the time. So, and then I also did I did kind of the same thing except on a chalk wall instead of sticky notes, but with the teens, when I was asking them like, what do you even think the phrase, what does being future ready like mean to you? You know, what does that mean? And so the teens just wrote on the chalk wall, they put their answers to it.
So cool.
What did it mean to them?
All kinds of things. And then of course there were like the standard like things like, it means I can buy all the hot dogs. You know, like, you know, there were like random answers too, but all kinds of things. I wrote them down, but they had a lot of really interesting things. It's like knowing how to talk to adults. Like, so, I mean, but it was interesting how many things they talked about fit into this soft skills model. And I was like, wow, like they're even, like they see it, they know that that's what they're gonna need. Like they're gonna need to know how to communicate and how to work with other people. And so like they didn't say communication or collaboration or critical thinking, but like a lot of the phrases they used was like how to figure stuff out on my own, you know, things like that. So so I thought that was really interesting. Yeah. Oh, so I just asked for like parent feedback on story time, like, you know, how do you like, yeah. So story time questions were things like do you prefer, I don't know, I thought it wasn't, I'm trying to remember what it was. I asked them something about like the activities we did, like what kinds of activities would you like to see us do? Because I was trying to get away from crafts per se, into like more engaging activities. So I asked for some parent feedback on that just to see what kind of ideas they were interested in.
Cool, that's awesome. Why am I getting echo once in a while? Am I echoing with you? But now I'm not. Okay. All right, so let's open it up to see what other people are up to. Who has either, or I'll call on you if someone doesn't Me. Somebody have something to ask a question about, like Bailey talking about what she's doing, or want to tell us some exciting thing that's going on?
I'll say something, although you'll have to judge how exciting it is. I just listened to a podcast that I thought would fit with what we're doing. And it's a psychologist, I can't even think of the name of it, but her information was mostly for introverts, how to make small talk and how to meet people, how to make friends. And she had very practical suggestions, because she said things like, usually people will just say, join a group. Well, you know, there's steps beyond joining a group that would be important if you're going to feel comfortable. And I just liked her practical things. And I thought that might be something a lot of middle school students could benefit from, was just, you know, small talk. And when you go into situations, how you chat with people and make connections.
That's really interesting. I'm just trying to think about like how you would do that with middle schoolers. I know lots of adults that small talk is really hard. So I'm just wondering, like, I think that's really interesting. Yeah. How would you do that? And yeah. Wait. Huh. Oh yeah, the moth. Absolutely. Because I even wonder, like, what do middle schoolers think small talk is? Or, right? You know, how do they define it in their world? Do they ever have to make small talk? And is it only with adults?
Well, and it goes back to the discussion of even being comfortable to ask a question of an adult that's not in their usual sphere of just feeling comfortable, not, you know, having to dread going into a new situation. If they change schools or whatever it is, how to get over the anxiety of that.
So I know it was kind of more formal, but what we did at the bank with the kind of like business lunch, where we made them sit next to adults and teens that they didn't necessarily know, and then kind of help them, well, like, this would happen when you are eating lunch with somebody you don't know. These are some questions you could ask, you know, and then go. And it was a little bit more formal and intentional, but I mean, they were doing it, and they understood that that was a situation that was going to, you know, come. And I'm sure they were already having those types of situations, but sometimes maybe giving them a little bit of guidance and prompts. You know, like, where are you from? If you're not, but I know from small communities, it's not really. They're usually all from the same place, but it's a question you can ask.
That's great. And I wonder if it changes. Like, so if you love tattoos, you don't make small talk with a tattoo artist, right? Because that's just like what you're really interested in. It's not small talk. So, right? I mean, I don't know. So like, how do you decide, how do you know when a situation is comfortable or uncomfortable, and how do you prepare for that? What you're interested in, you can always have a conversation about, right? I don't know. Fascinating. Oh, thanks, Kate. Somebody gonna say something?
No, I just said I hate parties, so that's why I was listening to the podcast.
I'm going to write, this is off topic a little bit, but I'm actually musing about a YALSA blog post that's about introversion being shy, because an introvert really is someone who isn't necessarily shy, just needs time to like recoup after having lots of people experiences. So I think often, like, we have to figure out who we are. Like, is it really that it's just exhausting being with people, and we have to then have time not to be exhausted? Or is it that it's just really hard to talk with people? Do that make sense?
it kind of comes back to when we were talking earlier about the conferences.
Mm-hmm.
As a, if you're from a rural area, one of your experiences at these national conferences is you say where you're from, and then you see the face go, and they're trying to do the geography, and you're like, yes, it's here, and people actually live there. And you kind of do that a few times, and then you're like, okay.
Really interesting.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of that.
Well, and it's that question of all those kids who get asked, what do you want to do when you grow up? Or how was your day today? And you say, how do you answer something like that? And then once you've done it 5 times for the adults in your life, you don't want to do it anymore.
But you know what kids would be really actually probably good at small talk are kids that are part of the system, that work with social workers regularly and have a lot more of an adult involved in their day-to-day experience.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
I know both in teaching and I ran a licensed daycare for about 13 years. One of the things that you had to do was an open-ended but very specific question. So my first probably 6 months of doing daycare, all these kids would get off the bus at the end of the day and I would say, how was your day? What did you do? And they would say things like, I ate lunch. I went outside. So what I ended up doing was taking their schedule. So if I knew you had art as a special today, I would say, hey, what project did you work on in art today? So it was open-ended and they could answer it any way they wanted, but it was tailored to them. And I think we could do the same with some of those small talk questions, like trying to figure out what their niche is and then allowing them to use that to ask other people. Because, yeah, if you ask another kid, if you're super into Minecraft and you ask another kid who's not, they might be a little bit more negative. Whereas if you ask an adult because they have those other skills, they'll come back with, no, what's Minecraft? I've never heard about it. And give them that opening and that segue to talk about things that they're interested in.
Absolutely. You can't see us shaking our heads, Beth, but we're all shaking our heads.
I can't.
We're shaking our heads. But you're also making me think so many things. But I'm also, and it went out of my head what I was just thinking. What was I thinking, somebody? Anybody have something that I was thinking or that you're thinking? All right. I think that's this, and that's, oh, I know what it was. So, because we've talked about finding out what teen interests are, right? And how do you know what the middle schoolers are interested in? What Beth was just talking about is you can't say, what do you like to do, right? Or what are you interested in? That's big.
Nothing.
Right. You have to.
Nothing. Video games, food. Like, great. That was helpful.
Right. So those are those questions we have to figure out. Is how do you find out about youth interests when it's not helpful to ask, what are you interested in?
But if you say, what was the last great book you read? What's the last movie that you loved? Where'd you go last night? They're still open-ended, but they give the kid the chance to individualize and say something specific about themselves.
Yeah. And it also shows a real interest, because those general questions don't show that we're really interested, right? It just seems like, hey, I got to ask you something, or here you are. But if you ask them something specific to their lives or that they are interested in, then you do have that. Hey, Ashley, can you talk? Or do you have to type? I just want to check in and say hi, because I know you're here. Okay. Anything coming up with your work? I know you posted your planning template.
Oh, that's what I have to do.
Beth, we can hear you.
I know, I'm sorry. I said, oh, that's what I need to do.
Planning template? Yeah,
It's the end of the year. I'm insane.
that's all right. Right, so the 24th is next week. Right, I can't wait to hear how it all goes. Anybody else on the planning templates? I know I've read a bunch of them, and the coaches and I are meeting after this, and we're going to talk a little bit about them. But anybody having questions about your planning templates?
I guess I have one.
Go, Tyler.
So I have like more than one activity planned because I couldn't pin everybody down for like one thing in one specific interest. Is that okay? Is it going to make my final report that much more complicated?
No, when Carol and I were talking last week about showing you the final, sending out the final report form so you see what that looks like, and I think that will do that. I don't think it makes it more complicated or more difficult. And keep in mind that the planning template is really for you to like just get your ideas out there and write them down and help you to see gaps. We want to see them because we want to make sure people are moving forward. But if it starts to feel too complicated, Tyler, then, you know, don't worry too much about it. Just put the pieces in that are going to be useful to you, and then coaches can get in touch and say, hey, tell me more about this or something like that. Does that make sense and help?
Yeah, totally. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other planning template questions or thoughts? All right. So, Kate, how is your project going? Sorry.
Sorry.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah, I'm so excited for all of you who are putting stuff together so well. And that keeps me like trying to keep faith with it. I'm not capturing partners who are interested in like being involved in design and development and delivery, and like I keep talking with people who are happy to write me a check but like don't want to like be part of it. And so at this point I've got like 2 folks who have said yes, like maybe, and so I want to meet with them and get them together and then see if we can like move to the next step of things. But I've done a lot of presentations in different community settings, and then I also hosted a Mr. Rogers screening, so like screened the documentary and was going to host a facilitated discussion after it, and I had a grand total of 4 people come. So and like one was like parents and a child, so and we like chatted a little bit, but they were like, that sounds like a really great thing you're doing, bye. And so that's been yeah, somewhat frustrating. So and then I'm eyeball deep in summer reading. So I talked with Carol and I think in like mid to late July, then I can start, like I'm gonna reach back out to those folks and say, hey, let's get together. And so there's one woman who ran her own business for a long time. She's an artist now in the community. She's the sister of our current director. She's interested in being involved. And then there's a woman who is a vocational training, vocational ed specialist for the what's called San Juan BOCES, which is like our Board of Cooperative Education Services. They serve more than one school system, you know, around us. And so she normally works with young adults, but she's been, you know, talking to the school systems for a long time and saying, well, like when I say adults, like she works with like 16 to 22-year-olds. And she's been saying for a long time that like, this is something that we need, is to start talking to middle schoolers about these sorts of things. And so she's interested as well. So I'm going to talk to those 2. And I got, you know, a really enthusiastic, positive reception from the school superintendent when he attended the talk I gave at Rotary. But then he was like, let's talk after spring break. And then I reached back out to him and he was like, let's talk after the school year. And then so like he's kind of put me off a couple times. So, and I know I don't think he's, I think he is interested. I think it's just a matter of they sort of have the same like challenge we have here. They're a small shop. and they have a lot of people, or not very many people doing all the things. Like, so I just think it's a matter of kind of like nailing him down, or saying, hey, who in the school district, like, do you think would be best suited for you? And then I am like still talking to business people, and but I just haven't, like, people are like, sure, we'd be happy to make a donation. Like, that's not what we're at. Like, that's not what I'm looking for. Like, and just talking to people about this concept of community engagement with this new model of it being sustainable, so it doesn't depend on the library to sustain it, to make it happen, or depend on one librarian in the library to keep that program going. Like, you know, I keep saying, like, if we have a lot of partners involved in this, because, you know, if we at least have a couple of committed partners involved, then it can be something that, you know, we can all work on together, and it doesn't depend on one organization. And if, you know, one of us goes through budget cuts or whatnot, like, we can adjust for that, and like we're pulling more ideas in, and it's more sustainable this way. But this community is so used to the library taking the lead on everything, like, and by taking the lead on it, like, really pushing it through and making all the things come together. And so this is such a radical departure from that, I think. And that's been the pattern for so long here, is like the library takes the lead on the public arts initiative, and the library takes the lead on this thing, and like, and people write the library a check, and then the library just makes it happen in the community. And so, like, trying to get people to think about doing this differently has been my biggest challenge, I think. And I, you know, even my director is like, well, that sounds like a really interesting concept, but I don't think that's going to work here. Like, I think we're just going to have to make it happen, you know? So it's like I'm like the lone voice in the wilderness trying to like talk about this model. And so that's just, it's been frustrating,
Well,
but
thanks
I'm not giving up.
letting us know. What are people, any thoughts for Kate? You can do it. But from people out there in the rural, small communities, any thoughts?
Kate, if you start pushing it forward, will they jump on with you, or will they sit back and watch you do it all?
They'll be happy to like fund me. They won't, like, that's what I keep getting is like, that's great. When you have it all put together and ready to implement, let us know how much you need, you know, like, and it's like, no, that's not what, thank you. And like, that's not exactly what I'm looking for right now, like at this point in time, right? So.
Well, one other thought I had was, and I don't know how you've put out the call for help, but our town has an annual festival, and it's been done, and it's pretty boring. The last 10 years has been done exactly the same, and some new people came into the key positions this year, and they put out through their newsletter and social media, it was very well worded, a message that we are looking for new ideas, who wants to come. And I actually went, and I hate meetings, and I didn't want to get sucked into another project, but just the way they worded it, like, we're really looking for fresh ideas, we need your input. That got me.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've been trying to talk to people about, because I've also been trying to talk to people about this you know, this expanded notion of literacies, multi-literacies, and like, I mean, without using too much like jargon around it, but just this idea that there are a lot of skills that we're expected to have now, you know, to function in the world. And you know, how can we, in this piece of that, this social emotional piece of that, like, you know, how can we work with kids and give them these skills and help them to develop them, and, you know, connect their passions to other things, and like, how can we come at this in a new way, like, is kind of like what I've been trying to talk with people about. But
Hey, do you have a really clear idea of what you'd like out of the project, or are you still kind of hoping the community partner will help lead to the project?
Oh, I mean, if I could put this together, it'd be done. Like, like you know what I mean? Like I'm super psyched about this project-based like service learning model. And so like that's as far as I've gone in like sharing information with people, just to say, hey, like you're not coming into this and you have to come up with something from scratch. Like these are the models that like I'm interested in us tapping into, and then creating what would project-based service learning for teens look like right here, you know? Like, so I'm trying to give them some like bumper lanes in the bowling alley, kind of like, will you just come in this lane and bowl with me right here? But yeah, but I mean, if I could put something together, sure, I could put some like, yeah, I mean, I could map it out. But.
Are there organizations or people in your community that are currently planning or facilitating programming for youth of any age?
Not really.
The only thing because we have a bank here that we partnered with, and they didn't work with middle school youth, but they did work with kindergartners. Do a financial literacy program, but I don't know. I've found that sometimes if people are already providing some sort of service or program to youth in general, they're more open to providing.
Yeah, so most of those organizations are actually based out of Durango and not Bayfield. And so like for example, and we do work with them sometimes. Like, so for example, the Boys and Girls Club is in Durango. It's not in, you know, we've done partnerships with them and programming with them. And yeah, but it's like, I don't know. So I guess like, is it time for, I guess maybe that's a question. Like, is it time for me to like look beyond, like, because Durango's in our orbit, if that makes sense, but it's not Bayfield. And like, I don't know, like I would love to capacity build in Bayfield, if that makes sense, right? Like,
but could they facilitate something outside in your area?
Maybe. Again, most of the support they usually give us is like helping us fund extra hours for like a staff, like give us some like we did we've done like cooking programs with it recently with the Boys and Girls Club, and so like they funded all the supplies for it and funded some extra hours for our staff like to be able to deliver it. But like, you know, but it's like there's a lot of that sort of going on. The one thought that I did have is that I really want to try to go find places I could talk with people and share information more that's like a younger adult demographic. Like we have these weird holes, and well, not weird, I know why they're there, but we have sort of these holes in our like adult age demographics. Like we have lots of older people, and then we have oh, actually, that's a really good idea. Happy hour brainstorm. I could rock up at the Billy Goat. It's our local dive bar. Yeah. Yeah.
You can do talk backboards at a happy hour.
At the dive bar, sweet. Like some next level stuff right there. There you go.
That's awesome.
Hey, I mean, it sounds like, because I'm very impressed with your talk backboards and all of that. And it seems like almost if you could find a way to communicate what you've learned from the talk backboards to the community partners, or maybe do like a mural project with the artists you want to work on based off that finding. This is you probably thought of this already, but it's something like
this is great. I did a word cloud, like, because every time I've been like collecting the keywords and phrases when I talk to people about, well, what do you think it means to be future ready? How do you think, you know, all of that, both adults and kids. So I did that, and so that's like part of the the Google Slides presentation that I have that I've been like talking to people with is this, you know, I'm like, look, I took this from adults and from kids and like generated this, and look at all the words, like look at the words that like came out big. Like these are all the words we're talking about, all these like social, emotional, you know. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I'll make people hear me at some point.
So I know we're out of time, but Kate, maybe the other thing to do is to actually do the service learning, but bring the community in through that, right?
Okay.
So if the youth are actually interested in something, come up with a community problem they want to solve, then the community comes in through that back door, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that does actually.
That's how the library differently.
Right. Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Cool. And Carly, can we talk to you soon? Because I know that we didn't get, you posted that, so yay. Yep. I'm glad that you have. So what I did want to mention is that next week, for our session. I'm not going to be able to be there, but Carol, who has walked away at the moment but is there, you can see her curtain in her wall. Hi, Carol, has said that she will lead the charge. We're going to have the superintendent of education from the North Dakota school system, or North Dakota public schools, whatever you call it, is going to talk with everyone because they've actually started to build a college career awareness whatever in the school system, and she was a school librarian. So I heard her on that, Kate was on this too, I think, on the rural, right? She was there, and I thought, oh, that's really cool. She was on that live stream about rural education. So she's going to be here next time. I won't be, but Carol is going to be, and I'll send out a reminder about that. And then the time after that, Mimi Ito, Amanda has arranged for us to have Mimi Ito is going to talk with the group about that new report that I know Tyler read about occupational identity. So she's gonna come and talk with you all about that, and then we can have a conversation about that, and that's the July 10th meeting. So Carol Sanamon, I answered that question, right? It's the July is July 10th, and next week is June 20th, right? Got that right, I think. All right, but I'll send out emails and COP posts and things like that. Thank you, everyone. Great conversation today. I'll see you in July, talk to some of you sooner than that. And coaches, we are staying on. Thank you, sorry, I will be emailing and other people will be too. Bye.